Where was that the last 5 years? Honestly, what we saw last night, if you're the Amplified man, you're asking where was that the last 10 years? A solid Monday Night Raw from top to bottom, start to finish, beginning to end. We have not seen a good show from start to finish in years. And yet last night, we saw a solid show from start to finish. It is amazing what competition can do to somebody. It is amazing what competition can do to a company. And it is amazing, even more so, what competition can do to Vince McMahon. We saw it with WCW back in those mid to late 90s. And if for anybody who thought AEW wasn't going to make an impact in professional wrestling, not even make a dent in the WWE armor, you saw last night that they already made a huge splash. Because a lot of what you saw last night, a lot of them forced to be creative last night, was directly from AEW. And this new blood, this new life, this new feel in professional wrestling. And it's a good feeling out of the lifelessness and soullessness that WWE has placed us in. The last 5 to 10 years especially. AEW at least brought a new sense of life. Whether people grasp onto this or not, who knows? But it brought a new sense of feel, especially when Jericho signed. And Vince comes out with a show like that, and you're gonna tell me AEW had nothing to do with this? Nothing to do with Vince and his suits and ties, his creators getting together and putting on a dynamite fucking show? With the roster they have, it should be dynamite, but they've made it so redundant, so complacent, and so lackluster that we've seen every single one of those individuals on that roster face each other. So that roster can't do any more than it already has. They ran it into the ground. And they did it in a way where we didn't give a crap about it from day one. So this is the roster we're stuck with till at least WrestleMania, when they either merge or they do another shakeup. So the only thing we need, what we're pleading to Vince McMahon for, is to make us care about this roster for the next couple of months. But you've already done every fucking match you can think of. So what do? You just get creative. It's what we've been asking McMahon for years, and he just didn't want to give it to us. The stubborn old man became even more stubborn and even more older. You mixed the two together, and he would not give us anything creative. All his time, his assets, his energy was spent on the XFL. And we did everything. We made videos like these. People stood outside Stamford, Connecticut. We emailed. We called. Vince, hey man, it's a big fan. Can you call me back at 1-800? I actually care about this shit. Thanks. But he wouldn't answer, would he? No, why would he? He's the big-time billionaire. We're just the fans. We're just the ones who want to watch great television. He's just the Grinch who doesn't want to give it to us. Well, now, thanks to AEW, can you hear me now, Vince? Can you hear me now? You guys all right? Relax. Don't get up too quickly. You guys took one hell of a fall. You probably got a bump on your noggin. So just sit back, relax, watch the rest of this video, don't make any sudden movements. You guys took one hell of a fall, but we had to prove a point to Vince. You can hear us now, can't you? Now you can hear us. Phones, they'll come and go, I got many of them. What we don't have a lot of on this earth is time. Our time is precious, and it flies by. When we watch something for 3 hours every single week, we want it to be entertaining. And for years, all it did was suck the life out of us. That is a problem, because you are a professional wrestling television show. The key words there are television show. You still have to entertain us, have to captivate us. Whether it's The Sopranos or Mad Men, or Breaking Bad, or The Simpsons, or even Seinfeld, which was a show about nothing, but even that show about nothing was about something. From the minute it took the airwaves, it had a story arc. WWE for years was going on the air with no story arc. Match after redundant match after redundant match, a little bit of a nonsensical promo, back into redundant match, nonsensical promo. Nothing gelled, nothing jived, nothing was entertaining, it was redundant, it was lackluster, we fell asleep, we didn't give a crap. That's the truth. Last night felt so good because I was entertained from the moment Monday Night Raw hit the airwaves. Allow me to waste no more time. I'll start right off with how we started off. Braun Strowman. Before he hits the airwaves, Vince McMahon comes to the arena in his limousine. Driver gets out, gets Vince McMahon out. Before Vince leaves the limo, he looks at the driver and he points to the car. There's a smear. The driver's like, I got it. Wipes it down. Vince is like, no, it's still there. Wipes it down some more. He looks at the driver like he's an incompetent just schmuck. And Vince walks off with his power strut. So right off the gate, the story is told beautifully. Vince McMahon cares about even the slightest smear on his limousine. That's going to come into play later. Remember that. Because why that went unnoticed to the naked eye, or that was something that people saw and it wasn't a big deal, it's a huge deal for the story arc. That one little cleaning of the smear, and that pissed Vince McMahon off, that the limousine wasn't pristine. Then we go on to Braun Strowman, middle of the ring, and he's cutting his promo about Brock Lesnar, and he's talking about how he's 100% cleared and ready, and he's gonna take that title from Brock because Brock knows he's afraid of Braun. Doesn't make much sense, yes, because we've seen Brock Lesnar defeat Braun Strowman in like 5 fucking minutes, if that. But we'll let Braun think about what he's we'll let him get his mindset. We'll let him get his game plan on. And if his game plan on is trying to tell Brock Lesnar that he's scared of him, then that's Braun Strowman's game plan. Who the hell are we, right? We want to hear that. We don't want Braun coming to the ring and going, shit, I'm just going to try to last 5 minutes so I don't look like a bigger idiot than I did the first time with Brock. No, we want him saying, I'm going to win. You're scared of me. I love it. But before he could do such, Baron Corbin enters frame. Baron Corbin starts talking a lot of smack, and Braun finally is having none of it. This is the Braun I've wanted to see for the longest time. They turned him into a schmuck. Like last week when Brock Lesnar was circling the ring. You're a monster among men. You're Braun Strowman. You can flip cars, trucks, drag them. And you're gonna let Brock just circle you like a shark and you're just a piece of meat in the ring? No. The Braun Strowman that we used to see would get out of the ring and chase that motherfucker faster than a cheetah. And that's what he did to Baron Corbin. He chases Corbin backstage. Corbin disappears. Braun's looking everywhere. The camera is now backstage. This is what I've been telling you guys for years now we need to do in WWE. Get out of the ring and start doing more backstage segments that are really cool and really epic. Really intriguing. Like anything can happen. Spontaneity is huge in television. And that's what they did. They started it last week with the brawl, the melee between Lashley and Rollins, and this week, now Braun is looking for Baron Corbin. You have Elias out of nowhere who's singing a song, but if you listen to the words carefully, he's basically telling Braun Strowman exactly where Baron Corbin is, and he's hiding in Vince McMahon's limousine. So Braun goes down to the limousine, and it's all locked up. He's pounding on the window. Obviously, if Corbin's in there, he's not going to let him in. So Braun finds some type of, it looked like a nightclub. But whatever the fuck it was a steel pole of sorts, and he bashed that window straight in. Then he proceeds to rip the door right off the hinges. At this point, Baron Corbin comes out the other side like he just saw a fucking ghost, but even worse, it's a Braun Strowman pissed off, and Corbin hightails it. At this point, maybe Braun Strowman is tired, who knows, but he says, yeah, you better run, in his Braun Strowman voice. Now this is where it gets really funny. Vince comes up now, and Vince is like, my fucking limo. And this makes sense because if you saw earlier, again, that smear, he was upset that there was even a mark on the limousine, that it was even smeared a little bit. And now it's completely destroyed, shattered, door ripped off the hinges? And Braun's looking at it and just looking at Vince. Vince obviously pissed off. He fines Braun Strowman $100,000. And Braun Strowman is having none of it. $100,000? For what? Vince is like, for what? Look at my limousine! And Braun Strowman's pissed. It's like $100,000. You're not getting $100,000. And he's raising his voice to Vince, and Vince is not happy now. Vince is like, now you want to raise your voice to me? You destroy my limo. You disrespect me. Now you're out of your Universal Championship title match at Royal Rumble. And Vince walks off, and Strowman is now pissed. He just got exited from his Rumble match. Now, obviously, this is because he's not 100% cleared, or maybe Vince just got pissed beyond belief last week that he forgot his lines in the middle of the ring when he was cutting the promo to Brock Lesnar, or didn't know where the fuck to look. Maybe that was such a bad botch, Vince is like, he is not ready for this limelight. I find that hard to believe, though, because you gave him such an epic Braun Strowman-esque segment. Especially when Vince walked off, because this is where the real fun started. And Braun Strowman looks at the limo, and sure, he looks at the windows. He's like, sure, I could shatter them, or I could do something Braun Strowman-esque. And he proceeds to lift that son of a bitch, beautifully stunted here. This was a beautiful stunt, man, went off flawless. And he lifts that limo up, and he tips Vince McMahon's limo straight upside down up on its head. Eat that, Vince. You thought it was just gonna get fixed real quick and then we'll ride off? No, good luck flipping that son of a bitch. You took me out of the Rumble? That's fine. Now you are not getting back into that limousine. That whole first couple of segments captivated all of us from the beginning. There's a crazy concept. Captivating an audience from the beginning. But it's what happened throughout the 3 hours that is why I am just honestly beyond belief ecstatic that WWE was able to produce that type of television. Because what they did over the next 2.5+ hours was they continued the story arc. When you watch a show, the first couple of minutes sets the tone of what the story arc is, and then you tell the story, and then you have a conclusion at the end. That is all I ever asked from WWE. It's what truly made the Attitude Era epic. Because you had the story arc from start to finish, and it was badass every step of the way. After years, we finally got that last night. It sat right in their lap. They just had to do something extremely fucking different for them, and it's called be creative. They're not used to doing that, but for some reason, and I won't question it because I'm just glad that they did it, but they all got together, and I think AEW had a big part in this, in forcing them to do such, but they all got together, it looks like, over the weekend, and they produced one hell of a show. Because that's what we got over the next 2.5+ hours. Because everything that happened last night, we kept going back to that main story arc. And it was done in beautiful fashion. Because the first match afterwards was Sasha Banks and Ronda Rousey taking on Tamina and Nia Jax. Of course, the match pretty much sucked because it's Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka. What part of that did you not get? Ronda did everything she could. Sasha Banks tried everything she could. You can't put on a good match with Nia and Tamina. But the fun in this happened afterwards, where Sasha caught wind of Ronda Rousey telling Charlie Caruso that it'll be her honor when she taps out Sasha Banks because Sasha's the opponent she always wanted to take on, and Sasha was not going to let that go. Sasha's like, you're just going to tap me out? I'm glad I know where I stand on your fucking totem pole here on this roster. And Sasha Banks goes on to cut one of her best promos I've ever seen Sasha Banks cut. This was like back in her NXT days. I have not seen confidence in Sasha Banks like this, like I have seen in the last 2 weeks since the NXT days. She was so, her words were so convicting, and they were so, not convincing, convicting. And there was so much fuel and fire in her words. And there was a determination, a motivation. in her that I have not seen since the NXT days, and even those days didn't match last night and last week. This is a 2019 Sasha Banks that has already forgotten about 2018 and is only looking forward to great things to come. And she proceeded to tell Ronda Rousey that you're not the only one that taps people out around here. And at Royal Rumble, you will be the one tapping out. Respect my name is what Sasha Banks loves to say now, to Ronda Rousey especially. I love that. What I didn't like is Ronda Rousey playing the cowardly lion, begging Sasha Banks to be her friend. That does not fit the story at all. Horsewomen versus horsewomen is what this is eventually going to lead to. We already know there's animosity, but the only horsewomen that Ronda truly respects is Sasha Banks. So I do understand that. But chasing after her made her look like a lost soul who just needs a companion, a friendship. She actually ran to chase Sasha Banks to say, please forgive me. What do I need to do? Lick your boots? Sasha played it off great because I'm sure that caught her off guard. So Sasha's like, yes, I want you to lick my boots. Respect my name. This is the name. She holds up the 4, which is the 4 horsewomen. So eventually it is going to lead to that. But Sasha carried all of that. Beautifully done. And then we cut backstage to the big story arc that I was telling you guys about. We continue on with Braun being kicked out of the Royal Rumble match. And we now need to find a replacement. And we continued after that Sasha Banks Ronda promo with Braun Strowman being escorted out of the building by security. So obviously Vince McMahon threw his ass out. That is the shit that is fucking beautiful. When you can make something epic with Sasha and Ronda and then bring us right back to the main storyline that's captivating us. That is what is going to work. That is called intriguing television. Whether you're a fucking cartoon show or a wrestling show, you have to have story arc. We go back to the ring for the Lucha fucking Summer House Party. The Piñata Party versus the Revival. Another redundant match, but they got creative here. They knew the crowd was not going to be into this because the crowd is never into a Revival match. The Revival gets zero reaction. I sit in front of this camera every week. I tell you guys this. Some people get pissed off. But the one thing I ask you to do is go back and watch yourself. Do your own research. Nobody, from the time they're introduced, to the time they're wrestling, to the time they actually win or lose the match, nobody even stands up. That's a Revival match. You add in the Lucha Summer Piñata Party, and you're going to have boredom. So what did they do? They cut backstage, and they had Charlie Caruso interviewing a plethora of superstars that want the shot to take on Brock at Royal Rumble, that want to take Braun Strowman's spot. I love this. You can look at it, some people, as disrespect to the Revival and the Lucha Summer Piñata Party, because the focus is now on this interview segment on the top left screen. I look at it as entertaining. That was way more entertaining than the match going on that I've seen 100 times. EC3 debuts. If you blinked, you wouldn't have noticed. He didn't even say anything. He just looks at Charlie Caruso like he's this fucking stud McStuffins over here. What the fuck are you? Are you a new Val Venus? What? From his promos the last several weeks, where he's basically stripping down and now he's just showing up and looking at Charlie Caruso like a creep? What is his character? This EC3 I'm not so sure about, guys. A bootleg John Cena and then some is what I'm seeing. But all this talent, Kurt Hawkins even, talking about how he's the best choice because he's got the streak. The fact that it's a losing streak made that hilarious. And then we cut back to the match, and a couple minutes later, Revival is eating the W, actually. They defeat the Lucha Summer Piñata Party. Like anybody cared. No, they didn't. Nobody even stood up in Memphis. Memphis needed a coffee all night, though. Memphis was not ecstatic for the most part, but there was a couple of matches that really captivated them, and we'll get to that. The Revival match was not one of them. But the fact that they went backstage and kept the main storyline going, who is going to take on Brock at Royal Rumble, that was really cool the way they did that shit. And that led us into the second hour. Vince McMahon kicks off the second hour. He's going to tell us all who is going to take on Brock Lesnar at Royal Rumble, who is going to replace Braun Strowman. So the entire first hour, I'm intrigued, man. I'm captivated by this shit. And Vince now starts the second hour. We're going to find out when all of a sudden that also familiar music hits the airwaves. John Cena's music hits. Now, he was not heavily promoted. The Amplified man didn't even know he was promoted at all for Monday. But this was welcoming because John Cena needed to salvage the stupidity in booking that they gave him last week. Cena showed up on SmackDown, Raw, and they had nothing for him. It was for no reason. It diminishes any stock that John Cena still has. But last night gave it a purpose. Vince, I'm asking you for one more shot, man. I know I haven't been around, but you always talk about those fucking brass rings and the grapefruits. For 15 plus years, I have given you nothing but my all. I ask you for one more shot because I have something that nobody else can bring to Brock Lesnar, and that is ruthless aggression. And that's where Drew McIntyre comes down to the ring. And Drew McIntyre says, John, I don't care about your 16 world championships or your Hollywood career. I care about what you just said. And about how you're the most deserving when I'm the one here every single week. And he looks at Vince. And he looks at Cena. And he keeps looking at both. And he looks at Cena one last time and he says, your time is up. And he looks at Vince and he says, my time is now. Taking John Cena's theme music and making it relevant in that promo. Love that shit. Finn Balor then comes down to the ringside. And Balor drops a little bit of a pipe bomb himself when he looks in Vince McMahon's eyes and he says, you never believed in me. And even Memphis that needed a coffee last night, big time. Even they had the, oh damn, he did not go there. Even Vince had a look like, excuse me? But he told Vince, you never believed in me. But these people did. They didn't give up on me. And I'm deserving of it. Somehow Baron Corbin sneaks down the ringside. He escaped the whole Braun Strowman, these hands. And now he's weaseling his way into this. And somehow this ends up being a schmaz between all four competitors. And Drew McIntyre takes John Cena's head square off his shoulders. Vince McMahon's loving all of this. He gets back on the mic and he says, tonight's main event, a fatal four-way. Winner goes on to take on Brock at Rumble. Loved it. Loved it. We continue the story arc now. And I'm okay with that fatal four-way to find out who's going on to take on Brock. This was done beautifully. And we were not even done with the story arc because now we continue it. And that's exactly what we did. Backstage, you have Jinder Mahal pleading his case. And he's like, what about, I was a champion and then I just got kind of lost in the shuffle. And nobody takes me seriously anymore, but you know, Vince, you know what I can do. I've done it before for you. And he pleads his case, and Vince McMahon likes what he hears, so he says, I'll tell you what, Jinder, you can pick whoever you want in that fatal four-way, and in a one-on-one match, if you're able to defeat them, you will take their spot in the fatal four-way main event later that night. So the story arc continues. He picks Finn Balor because he thinks he's the weakest link. The match ends up taking place. It's actually a pretty good match that sees Finn Balor defeat Jinder Mahal. It takes two to tango. So I'm giving Jinder Mahal all the credit in the world for making that match go off without a hitch. That was actually a damn good match, and Jinder Mahal deserves credit. But it's Finn Balor that wins the match and keeps his spot for the fatal four-way going forward. Again, love that shit. It's what we ask for. It is not that hard to sit down and create something that people are going to want to see. Or I take that back, actually. It can be hard. It can be challenging. But that's what you signed up for. You're a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate company. 3 hours of television live every Monday and then 2 hours live the next night every Tuesday. Pay-per-views every month. And for years, you just settled into lackluster, nonsensical, redundant bullshit. We're just still in our second hour, guys, and now we're going into a triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship. Rollins, Lashley, and champion Dean Ambrose. This match, everybody in Memphis Either they had a coffee or they were just electrified by this match because they were all standing up in unison. This match obviously delivered. Hardcore and big time. Love this match. And at the end, shock and awe effect when Bobby Lashley wins the match and takes the IC strap. Who would have thunk it? Bobby Lashley, man, I welcomed it. I don't mind Bobby Lashley at all. He's got the mouthpiece Leo Rush, who I've had my differences with on these videos, when he called out fans for being, not being so positive, and being too negative, and complaining too much. But when we do Leo, this is the result. We get better television. This is why we complain. This is why we won't stop, ever. But I don't mind Leo and Bobby Lashley. Makes sense if you're going to make him a destroyer. A lot of people upset with it. They don't like Lashley. Hey, I understand, man. Beggars can't be choosers. We got a damn good match. And let's be honest, Dean Ambrose's title reign wasn't doing much for any of us. It was dry as hell. But I will say this. What was Dean Ambrose's title reign for in the beginning anyway? He's only had it for less than 2 months. It was meaningless and useless by giving it to Bobby Lashley. But that's where they decided to go. And again, no harm, no foul, because Ambrose's title run was doing nothing for anybody. So when it's all said and done, at least we got a damn good triple threat. And again, you still got a fatal four to look forward to later in the night in the main event. So then we have, where do you guys want to go here? Then we go to, let's go to this. This was fun. This was great. If you're the Amplified man, you get the best of both worlds. Backstage, you have an assistant with a latte for Alexa Bliss. He's banging on the door, but nobody's answering. So the assistant, the production assistant, he walks in. He says, I'm coming in. And he walks in with a latte. Now, the scene already captivated the Amplified man because there's a latte. Fucking love lattes. So I'm like, as he's walking through the door, my eyes are following the latte. And we go right in to a topless Alexa Bliss. She has her t-shirt over and she's holding her left how you doing? And she's grasping it. So now I have a latte and a topless Alexa, and Amplified Man is in heaven. I loved it. A latte and a topless Alexa. At that point, I could literally just, a happy man, I could just float up into the airwaves, man. That was just brilliant. That brought me back to a little bit of Attitude Era when we used to get some sexuality with beautiful females. I'm so happy with where the females have come to so far. And I say so far because they have so much more to achieve. I'm so happy to see what they've achieved so far. Especially in the last 5 to 10 years, and the revolution into the evolution and where they've come. And not just used as sex symbols. That's awesome. But they're still the most beautiful creature ever to grace God's green earth. So give us some sexuality because they're so beautiful. We saw it last week with Mandy Rose in the towel. We see it this week with Alexa Bliss. I fucking loved it. Again, the latte in the same picture with a topless Alexa, and I'm sold. That was one of my favorite segments. And then we went into a moment of bliss, and it just got even better. Well, okay, you can't get better than that. That was probably the best segment of the whole entire night. But I loved a moment of bliss. Because first and foremost, you got Bliss out there looking so fucking beautiful. And she says, a moment of bliss. And she turns around and she makes sure everybody sees her derriere. And everybody wants to see her derriere. Because it's beautiful. So she's a little bit more sexualized now. And I like that with Alexa Bliss. If she's going to be on the shelf anyway with this concussion. And there's had a lot of, it hasn't gone exactly how they wanted it to go. And it's taking much longer. Make her what she is then. She's absolutely beautiful. She's got a dynamite body. One of the sexiest females to ever grace WWE or professional wrestling for that matter. You can use that a little bit in storyline. It's fine. So then you go to Paul Heyman, and he continues the story arc of who's going to replace Braun Strowman at Royal Rumble to take on Brock. So it goes back to the main focus, which I love. They never once took their eye off the ball. Every segment, they made sure that was the main focal point and main storyline. I loved it. And Paul Heyman is now the guest, and he's raising the stake of every performer in that Fatal 4-Way later. And talking about how each one of them is a viable candidate. But nobody is going to beat his beast, Brock Lesnar. So he's pumping up not just the Fatal 4-Way main event for later in the night, he's pumping up the Rumble match with as the advocate of Brock Lesnar. So he's killing two birds with one stone. I loved it. And then all of a sudden, Otis comes out from Heavy Machinery, and this was going to be one of the cringe moments of Raw that we usually get, that we hadn't get yet to that point. Other than watching Nia Jax wrestle, there hasn't really been a cringeworthy moment yet up to this point. Middle of the second hour. But here comes fucking Otis, and you're thinking this is the moment that we're all going to kind of put our head down and go like, oh shit. I hope nobody that we love or anybody that we respect walks into the room right now and watches us watching this. But no, it ended up being hilarious. Otis is being fucking Otis, and he's screaming to Alexa, pretty lady, pretty lady, pretty lady. I loved it. He must have saw the segment backstage, and he couldn't hold himself. He couldn't contain himself. He needed to see pretty lady up close. The other half of Heavy Machinery's coming out to help him out, obviously. He's backing Otis up. I love this, man. Heavy Machinery finally gets backstage. Alexa Bliss is like, what the hell? Paul Heyman's like, this just totally ran off the hinges. This train ran off the track. I loved it. That was a moment of bliss I actually didn't mind for many reasons. Alexa Bliss showing off her assets, and Paul Heyman selling two things, the main event for later in the night and the Royal Rumble match. And then you got Heavy Machinery actually coming in a way that's how they should be used. Guys, they're not going to go over by just being a legit formidable badass team. It's not going to work. Not even the AOP was able to pull that off. So use them for what they are. They remind me of like a Bushwhackers, or at least Otis does. So bring them in as such, and maybe they'll get over organically. I know that was a badass way, a badass first impression. So that I absolutely liked as well. 6-woman tag match. This could be another cringeworthy moment, but it wasn't. This was the Riot Squad taking on Bayley, Natalya, and a partner that was not announced. So who's it going to be? We're all thinking, obviously, it's Ember Moon, right? I don't mind seeing Ember Moon, even though this is just a redundant 6-woman tag match at this point. But it wasn't. It was a debuting Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross, man. Music blasting. The camera work was great. Kevin Dunn was on his A game. I'll give the guy credit. And even Nikki Cross was able to get a reaction out of that kind of dead Memphis crowd. And Nikki Cross put in the work last night. A damn solid debut by Nikki Cross. Bayley was on fire last night. Bayley brought a fire in her last night that I have not seen in a long time. It goes back to what I told you guys in the first place. We don't need to see a boss and hug collection, connection, whatever you want to call them. Sasha deserves to be on her own. Bayley deserves to be on their own. And let them fly. Let them soar. Obviously, they're going to come back to tag team titles. And by the way, I'll get to that in a second. First of all, this match, it was Bayley with a flying Macho Man elbow from the top rope. And Bayley wins the match for her team. Bayley, Natalya, and Nikki Cross with their hands waved in the air. So a big debut for Nikki Cross. Can't believe they did all these debuts in Memphis, but that's what they decided to do. But Bayley was the surprise here because she brought a fire I haven't seen since the NXT days. Really, really, really good to see. Back to the tag titles. That moment of bliss. That was another reason that I totally forgot why this moment of bliss was actually fucking good. Because at the top of moment of bliss, she debuted and unveiled the actual titles for the women. The tag team titles. And they are beautiful. They are better than both men's tag titles and the Universal strap all collected together. Those women's tag titles are better than all of them together. Those stupid crushed pennies, I call them. And the exploding strawberry Universal title. Those are some nice looking title straps. Just wanted to say, I was very pleased with those titles, guys. Very, really nice. So that was also at a moment of bliss. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, guys. Put this out. Should we just go into... I guess I'm going to go right to the main event now. This was a match everybody was on their feet for. Obviously, it's a pretty damn good Fatal 4-Way. John Cena, Finn Balor, Baron Corbin, and Drew McIntyre. Fatal 4-way that did what it was supposed to do. Entertained the hell out of us. And again, the main point of all this, it wasn't just a fatal 4-way. This was pretty big. This was to go on to take Brock on in 13 days. That's not a lot of time. We need a new replacement. And we're going to find out who it is. It could have been anybody. We all thought Finn Balor because he was playing the underdog by having to take on a one-on-one match with Jinder Mahal earlier in the night. So we all thought maybe Finn. But easily they could have gave it to Drew, even though I feel it's too early. He's not there yet. John Cena could have gotten it. Because they took out one big name, they want to put a big name in its spot. Corbin, never did I think he was actually going to do it. I always thought from moment one he was there to eat the pin. But it was Finn Balor when it was all said and done. And again, the crowd on their feet, the "This is awesome" chants. And coming from Memphis, for them to be electrified last night, that's saying something. But us at home, if you didn't like that fatal 4-way, then I think you pretty much are done with the product and now you're just tuning in the videos like this, or you just tune in to Raw for the negativity. You just want to bitch and complain. Because that was a damn good match. And at the end, we found out Finn Balor is going to be the next challenger to take on Brock Lesnar. Love that shit! My only thing here is this. Finn Balor is not beating Brock Lesnar. It ain't happening. Daniel Bryan could not beat Lesnar. AJ Styles could not beat Brock Lesnar. If Balor, who many say should have been in the Cruiserweight division, but if he is going to take on Lesnar, he has to show up as the Demon. If he shows up as the Demon in Phoenix, Arizona at Chase Field, anything is possible. Guys, anything can happen. Vince changes his mind by the minute. He could have Demon Balor walk out of Chase Field, Phoenix, Arizona, with the strap. I'm telling you. Right now, it looks like Brock is going to retain and go to Mania with it. And that probably makes the most sense, but I'm just saying. If the Demon shows up, he's undefeated. The Demon, I feel, can beat anybody because the Demon is a legit, bona fide superstar. If we saw more of the Demon, he could be larger than life. But regular pop-collar, smiley Finn Balor, I don't see him defeating Brock Lesnar, nor should he. So that's the real question here. Which Finn Balor shows up to Royal Rumble? If it's the Demon, business just picked up, as JR used to say. If it's Finn, be prepared to see another ass whipping like we saw with AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan. Sure, they got their few minutes of offense, and it was close for a few minutes, but then it was just an ass whooping from start to finish. And we went off the air with John Cena endorsing Finn Balor and basically passing a torch of sorts. And he got on the mic and he praised Finn Balor. Shook his hand, raised his hand, we faded to black. Monday Night Raw was damn solid. Monday Night Raw was damn good. That's all we ever asked for years. It took us bitching and moaning and complaining and being too negative for this long for them to finally come out a few weeks ago and say, we're sorry, we have been absent, we have screwed up, we're going to change. It took AEW forming. It took all of these things to make the perfect storm, to make these people, to force them into a room and get creative. Because that's what I saw last night. Stories that made sense, things that were not confusing, good wrestling, but even better storytelling. Stunts with the limousine, which I love. Getting away from just the in-ring competition, taking us backstage, taking us to the parking lot. Getting us invested in the television show side of things, not just the pro wrestling inside the ring. Because it's a complete package. I could go on and on. I am ecstatic about what I saw last night. It was not the greatest show ever. No. I'm hesitant to even call it a great show, but it was a damn good, solid show. And for years of what we've been watching, and then they promise us change, and we're like, yeah, right, we'll believe that when we see it. And then all of a sudden we see it? I'm mind-boggled, but this time for a good reason. I'm the Amplified Man. I'm shutting up so all you guys can go about your Tuesday and kick ass. I'm going to double fist some Starbucks and whoop some ass today, and I'm going to join you guys tomorrow morning for the SmackDown review and reaction. Until then, holla at your boy. Peace, cause he's out. Check you.